The Girls of Atomic City is a narrative nonfiction book about young women and men living in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, one of the secret cities of the Manhattan Project during World War II. It was a town that was literally built from scratch in 1942-43 and is still there now. The whole purpose for this town was enriching uranium for the first atomic bomb ever used in combat. And one of the most fascinating things to me about this particular story was that the vast majority of people who went to this town to work during the war had no idea what it was that they were working on. I was doing some research and came across what I found to be a beautiful, stunning photograph. It was a black and white photograph that I eventually learned was the interior of one of the plants at Y12, a plant in Oak Ridge. And I looked at the caption and it said these young women were, many of them just high school graduates, some of them had grown up on farms and were enriching uranium for the world's first atomic bomb, but none of them knew that at the time. And I thought, what on earth is that? I think having the perspective of women who, some singles, some housewives, of having the perspective of people who were factory workers, not just the scientists, I think that lends a very, very important perspective to any historic moment, and certainly it lends a historic perspective to the Manhattan Project as well. Because this city was built from scratch in the early 40s specifically for the Manhattan Project, it was done at such a rapid pace. What was there was torn down and cleared out so quickly that what was left behind, as soon as it rained, just turned into rivers of mud. And a lot of it was that Tennessee kind of red clay mud that gets all over everything. And one of the women I interviewed liked to joke that she would go to work in the morning, and by the time she got home at the end of her shift, there were 10 new houses. The other thing that everyone there talks about is, the average age in Oak Ridge during the war was late 20s, a lot of single young women, a lot of single young men, dances, so there was a lot of dating around, and a lot of marriages resulted from World War II in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. One of the things I would talk about with the women I interviewed for the Girls of Atomic City was whether or not they thought a project the size and scale of the Manhattan Project that was kept so secret, if that would ever be possible today. And no one said yes. Absolutely everybody said there is no way. Not with Twitter and cell phones and email and the World Wide Web and television alone. There was no television back then either. So it would be extremely challenging to have a secret city of 75,000 people and no one really on the outside knowing what was going on there. I hope that readers of the Girls of Atomic City will find these stories of young, adventurous women inspiring. They were trying to do the best they could for their families, for their country. That war, World War II, touched everybody's life in this country. They all had brothers or boyfriends or someone they knew who was away fighting, and they wanted to do their part. And their part in this case meant going to a secret city and working on something they knew absolutely nothing about and weren't allowed to discuss. And I think it's interesting to remember that a lot of times in history, people sometimes, without trying to, find themselves in the midst of extraordinary events. So it's a lovely tale and an inspiring tale, I think, of good, ordinary people in the middle of extraordinary times.